Hey guys, it's Christian, your Vancouver realtor, and for today's video I want to talk to you about protection for pre-sale buyers. And we talk about consumer protection in the resale market. You've seen a lot of that in the news with the BCNDP talking about their cooling period, their 5 days, maybe it's going to be 3 days, we don't know exactly. Here's a forgotten area where an unsuspecting novice buyer can really get hammered, and that is in the pre-sale area. And I'm going to share with you a couple of stories, examples for you, where projects have been delayed. The developers are no closer to getting these towers built today than they were 2-3 years ago when I walked through their pre-sales development, or not their pre-sales show homes. And so I think that a lot of the buyers out there, the general public is unaware of this. And this is really an area where the province should look at some consumer protection, because the risks to you if a project doesn't get built are much greater than anything they're talking about in the resale market. So let me explain to you. So here's the first thing. When you're going to buy a pre-sale, you're obviously, let's say today's 2022, you're making a purchase. The tower's not going to be up for 3, 4, 5 years. And so the developer that we're dealing with, we really need to do our homework on them. And we've got to look under the hood and make sure that they've got a solid reputation for delivering the product and delivering it on time. But let's stress the first part, just delivering the product. Because what I'm finding in the industry is the occasional first-time developer, it's the rookie who's undertaking this for the very first time. There's a number of projects like this. There's one in downtown Vancouver. I'm not going to name some names here because this is not positive news, but where literally the developer was one man, and I believe he was in Hong Kong, and he had just contracted the entire project out to a construction company here in the Lower Mainland. It ran 18 months, I think 2 years behind schedule. The finishing was really just disappointing. I remember seeing golf ball sized holes in the window frames. It was the worst walkthrough I've ever done on behalf of a client. And that, at least it got built. What I'm going to tell you now is there occasionally you get first-time builders, they won't even build the project. Now imagine, here you are, the buyer. You walk in, you see this development, let's say it's in Coquitlam, and the price looks pretty good. It looks like it's about, a 2 bedrooms going for $680, and that's about $30,000-$40,000 cheaper than the other pre-sale. So let's go make an offer. Boom, we make an offer. You've got your deposit in. You've got your 7-day rescission period. You put the rest of the deposit money in. Now you're in this long-term waiting period. And what we see sometimes happen with first-time developers is they're just not very skilled at dealing with the city. They don't know how to interact with city staff. They obviously can't get their building permit, and that delays the whole process. And there's rumors right now. There's a project in Coquitlam where the developer may just decide not to build the project. And who gets screwed are all the buyers who bought into this 2.5 years ago. They bought in at 2.5 years ago prices. Right? Today's price, that would have been about $800 a square foot. Today we're looking at about $1,000 a square foot. So this is the kind of thing that we really have to pay close attention to when you're looking at a pre-sale property. We've got to know who is the developer, who is the development team. Are these guys for real? Will they build this project? So that's very, very important. So that's the word on the street right now, that this thing is not going to go forward. That what the developer may do there is just give everybody their money back and say, okay, good luck, go ahead and go get yourself something else. But the buyers are screwed. And I'm just surprised that the province hasn't thought of some better protection for buyers dealing with developers who don't go ahead and build the project. You know, the classic case here was that 2017, 2018. That was a builder. They've been in the news, Vivagrand. In that instance, they had a site on the Cambry corridor. And what happened is, from the time they bought it to the time they were about to start construction, which is about a 2-year lead time in that instance, the prices had skyrocketed. And so they ended up walking away from the project. Now, they threw a whole bunch of excuses out and said, oh, well, the city of Vancouver was really hard to deal with. And when we looked at the facts, you know, the city had responded to them in a timely manner, and they were sometimes taking over a year to respond to what the city had requested from them. So they were intentionally delaying, foot dragging, so they didn't need to build the project. And then there was some silly story about them having cut down a tree on the property, for which the city then just said no to any possible building permit. And then they threw up their arms and said, well, we're going to give all the buyers their money back. So a lot of this kind of stuff can happen. You got to be careful who you're dealing with when it comes to the pre-sale development companies. You want to be dealing, I believe, with seasoned companies. They've been in business 20, 30 years. They have a good reputation. The Anthems, the Bosas, the Concord Pacifics, they've been in business a long time. They plan to be in business a lot longer. So their reputation is very important to them. Could you imagine them not building a project and just throwing the keys on the table and walking away? I mean, how would a buyer ever walk into their pre-sale center ever again and believe in them, believe that I'm going to put down a $100,000 deposit here over the next year and 18 months, and I need you to deliver a finished product 4 years from now. So it's very important that the reputation be solid. One last example. This was, again, one of these first-time rookie developers out in Surrey. Dealt with them about 2 years ago. And in this case, again, they don't know how to liaise with the city staff there. I've even called the city of Surrey to get updates on the project, and they're very diplomatic. They tell me, look, we can't say any more than what we've already told you, but they have to follow certain guidelines. And so, reading between the lines, what I'm hearing from the city staff is that the developer is simply not doing the required work. They're not providing the required the paperwork and so on to get their project moving along. And that is something you just got to be careful. You got to be careful when you're buying a pre-sale project. And it's gotten to the point now for myself and my clients. And in that instance, the disclosure statement ended up expiring. By the way, the disclosure statement is just the developer's particulars. You know, like when they plan to deliver the product, what it's going to be, what kind of finishings, you know, what their countertops are going to be made out of. All of that is what's in the disclosure statement. And there's only a certain window that the developer has to sell a certain number of units before that thing expires. They get the financing, the city gets them the building permit, and away they go. They're off to the races. They can build. So the clock is ticking on them. But and in that instance, they obviously are not getting it done. So you got to be very careful who the developer is. I'm going to say this, like this is now my sort of policy at this point with my clients. I'm telling them, if it's a rookie developer, we're not going near it. And in that instance, just the one I just told you about, I was telling my client, I'm not sure that we should re-up with these guys. I just don't have the faith that they're going to build this. At the end of the day, of course, I have to follow my client's instructions. If the client wants to go ahead and re-enter into a contract, that's their decision. However, I just want you to be very careful dealing with first-time builders, rookie developers. You could be in a situation where you lose a lot of money. And to be very specific, just imagine you were buying a 2-bedroom for $750,000 3 years ago. Today you might be paying an extra $200,000 for the same 2-bedroom. That's $200,000 gap because you're re-entering the market at a higher price, right? You should have been locked in 3 years ago, but they're not going to build the project. So that's just something I wanted to share with you. Make sure you are dealing with a reputable developer, and or do your homework. Look under the hood. Make sure they're going to build that project. And we'll see you next time.